Billionaire arrived early, caught his fiancée, pouring dirty water on his mother and daughter. The billionaire wasn't supposed to be home that early. The wedding was only hours away, and his fiancée was expected to be preparing with grace and excitement. But as he stepped quietly into the garden, the scene before him stopped his heart cold. His elderly mother and little daughter stood trembling, drenched in filthy water, while the woman he was about to marry stood over them with an empty bucket, her face twisted with disdain. In that instant, his world collapsed. How could someone he trusted with his future show such cruelty to the people he loved most? How often do we mistake charm for kindness? And how do we truly know if love is real or just a mask? Before we continue this story, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and like this video, so we can bring you even more amazing stories like this one. It was meant to be the happiest day of his life. The billionaire had meticulously planned every detail of his wedding, not only to celebrate love, but to honor his family. The two people who had been his anchor through storms, his elderly mother, who had raised him after his father's passing, and his little daughter, the only light left after his late wife's death. He had built an empire from scratch, nights without sleep, deals negotiated with nothing but determination, and years of sacrifice had turned him into one of the wealthiest men in the country. But despite the glitz of power and fortune, he remained a man rooted in humility, never forgetting the hands that had held him up when he had nothing. And then she came into his life. His fiancée was radiant, adored by society, graceful in manner and speech. To outsiders, she was the perfect match for a man of his stature. To him, she was a chance at love again, a mother figure for his daughter, and a companion to share his future. His family never voiced their unease. His mother's silence was heavy, but she hid it for his happiness. His daughter clung to her, too young to see through her coldness. On the surface, everything sparkled. Behind the curtains, whispers of tension lingered, and now that mask had fallen. He stood frozen, heart pounding, as the woman he trusted revealed her true self. His mother, dripping with dirty water, looked away in shame. His little girl's small hands trembled as tears streamed down her face. The bride-to-be, once radiant, now looked monstrous in her cruelty. The question hit him like thunder. Had he been blinded by love or by illusion? He didn't confront her immediately. Instead, he stepped back into the shadows, unseen, watching as she wiped her hands as if ridding herself of filth. Her voice was sharp. Her words, though he couldn't catch them all, were dripping with venom. She glanced around, certain no one else was there, then walked away, leaving his mother and daughter humiliated in the garden. The billionaire's chest tightened. His wealth, his empire, his reputation, none of it mattered in that moment. What mattered was that the two people he loved most had been harmed, not by strangers or enemies, but by the woman he had promised to marry. For hours, he wandered through his mansion, each room echoing with memories of her false charm. He remembered the times she smiled at him in front of guests, the gentle way she held his hand, the admiration she showed when cameras were flashing. But he also remembered the subtle moments, his daughter flinching in her presence, his mother's wary eyes, the stiffness in her voice when she spoke of his bride-to-be. He had dismissed them, believing love could soften edges. Now, he realized, he had ignored warning signs carved in stone. Curiosity gnawed at him. Was this cruelty a sudden outburst, or had it been there all along, hidden beneath practiced grace? He summoned courage to dig deeper. Quietly, he spoke to household staff. Their answers confirmed his worst fears. She belittled the servants, mocked his mother when he wasn't around, and treated his daughter as though she were an inconvenience rather than a child longing for warmth. Friends, too, revealed what they had kept from him. She was known for chasing wealth, always appearing in circles of the rich, always leaving behind men who could not provide the lifestyle she demanded. Her beauty was her weapon, her charm, her disguise. The truth unfolded like shattered glass, cutting him with every piece. She had never loved him. She had loved what he owned, what he represented, the power she could inherit by standing at his side. His daughter and his mother were not part of her dream. They were obstacles, reminders of a past she wanted erased. That evening, he stood in his study, staring at the wedding rings resting in their box. Gold, flawless, sparkling under the light, yet in his eyes they looked tarnished, poisoned. He clenched his fists, rage simmering beneath his calm exterior. Tomorrow was supposed to be his wedding day. Now it would become her downfall. and one question refused to leave his mind. If love cannot be trusted, what is left to believe in? The grand hall filled with guests the next day. Chandeliers sparkled, music swelled, and all eyes turned to the bride as she entered, draped in white, diamonds glittering against her skin. Her smile was dazzling, her poise flawless. She looked like a queen walking to her throne. No one could have guessed the storm waiting to erupt. The billionaire stood at the altar, tall and composed, though his heart was a battlefield of fury and grief. The officiant began the ceremony, speaking of eternal vows and sacred love. When it was time for him to pledge his future, he raised his hand, not in promise, but in protest. The room went silent. With steady voice, he revealed everything. He told the story of arriving home early, of the bucket of dirty water poured on his mother and daughter, of the cruelty hidden beneath her mask. Gasps echoed through the hall. Guests turned, their admiration curdling into disgust. Murmurs rose like thunder, eyes piercing the bride who now stood pale and trembling. She tried to laugh it off, to deny, but the weight of evidence was crushing. Staff members stepped forward, confirming her actions. Even his mother, with quiet dignity, recounted the humiliation she had endured. The daughter clung to her grandmother, her tearful eyes proof enough of truth. The billionaire's final words struck like a hammer. She would never marry him, never touch his fortune, never harm his family again. Guards escorted her from the hall, her dreams of wealth crumbling with every step. And as the doors closed behind her, the silence left behind was louder than any applause. Resolution and impact. 1315 Minervois. 350 words. The story did not end at the wedding hall. It began spreading beyond. Newspapers shifted their headlines from celebration to betrayal. Guests who once praised her beauty now whispered of greed and cruelty. She had gambled everything for power and lost it all in one public humiliation. For the billionaire, it was a painful awakening. He realized he had nearly sacrificed the very core of his life, his mother's dignity, his daughter's innocence, at the altar of appearances. Wealth had blinded him, but truth had saved him. He looked at his empire differently now. Towers of glass and steel could crumble, fortunes could vanish, but the bond of family, the love that asked for nothing in return, was priceless. He vowed never again to mistake glamour for goodness or charm for character. In the days that followed, his home grew quieter but warmer. He spent more time with his daughter, more evenings with his mother. Their laughter became the true treasure of his mansion. And as he reflected on the betrayal, he realized it carried a lesson not just for him, but for anyone who had ever been blinded by illusions of love. So he asked himself, and perhaps the world as well, do we really know the hearts of those we trust? Or are we sometimes too eager to see only what we want to believe? Because in the end, money can buy chandeliers and diamonds, but it cannot buy kindness. Empires may be built on wealth, but homes are built on love. And love reveals itself not in grand gestures, but in how someone treats the people you cannot live without.